All right. I am joined here by Chase Saldate, one of the newer members of the Michigan wrestling team here. So welcome, Chase.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Four-time NCAA qualifier. You were wrestling previously for the Michigan State Spartans. Um, you and I have gotten to talk over the years, whether it's at the MSU Open or different events, and always been a big fan of yours and watching you add things to your wrestling and develop, right? So talk a little bit about, just the time at Michigan State and kind of what that meant to you.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great time at Michigan State my 4 years there. A lot of people don't know, but one of the big reasons I was at Michigan State was my sister was at the school, so I had a couple years with her, which was actually really cool, and it made the transition very easy to college. Made a lot of great friends there. Cam Caffey, Lane Malcheski, Fish, Caleb Fish for sure. And one thing that's super cool that I love about the guys at Michigan State in particular is like I went to Michigan, the rival school. To me, it wasn't a huge deal because I'm not from this area, but it could be to a lot of people. And they, congratulated me. I still hang out with them to this day, which is awesome about the team. Kind of says a lot about the guys there. But my experience at MSU was very up and down as far as my career went. So I had a lot of pros, a lot of cons, a lot of fun. But ultimately, I had a great time those 4 years, and I think it was like a great stepping stone for me. I think if I went straight into like a bigger program, kind of how I was or where I'm at now, may have been a little bit of like blindsided and like, wow, this is like insane. But I think Michigan State was like perfect for like, hey, like I know what I'm supposed to do, but it was kind of like hard to do. It's kind of like not as many guys kind of dialed in, didn't want to do into those things. And then now I'm at U of M, and it's like night and day. I mean, we got guys training for the Olympics, so it's insane. But I love MSU. I still tell people I'm still Spartan at heart. Graduated from there. My girlfriend still goes here. She's a gymnast here, so I'm in East Lansing right now, actually.
There you go. There you go. Awesome, man. Well, talk a little bit. One of the things I wanted to go over with you actually was it's super interesting, right? So, I said before, and people might know, I graduated from Central Michigan. Obviously, I've been around. I'm from Ann Arbor originally. I'm wearing my Michigan hat, and so it was really fun watching you battle with a guy like Will Lewan and Johnny Lovett over the years. I know there was a lot of back and forth. I think everybody's got wins over each other and though that kind of three-man round robin, right? So talk a little bit about those interstate battles and kind of what that was like.
Yeah, it's actually really cool to have like three guys, like the three schools we have here all just happen to be top 20 guys. Will Lewan, I used to hate wrestling Will Lewan. And I tell him this because I would always tell him, I'd be like, dude, I would get so bored in our matches because it was always overtime. And so that was always fun matches. He actually beat me this year at NCAA's, and now he's my partner, which is insane. Johnny Lovett, those matches were the exact opposite. I mean, those were always like high paced, high scoring, really fun. You never know what's going to happen. This season, he beat me early in the year, I beat him later in the year, and they were both super high scoring matches. So it's kind of cool, honestly, just to have like we have a Central Michigan and U of M and Michigan State all have guys in the same way who are super competitive with each other. And I think it shows a lot about kind of the colleges in the area and the state as a whole, and that we're all pretty good. So I had a blast wrestling all them. I think Lovett still has one more year, so I may be wrestling him
Yep.
this year. So still got that matchup.
Yeah, yeah. I think what was it this year? I think you were down with maybe a couple of minutes left in the third by maybe 4 points or something, and then you kind of just stormed back, which was surprising because Lovett's so good defensively. Just talk a little
Yeah.
bit about, your mindset late in the match.
Yeah, so in that match, I think it was the second period I got put to my back, which was kind of a shock to me. I like to consider top as one of my better positions. And, I got reversed, put to my back, and I was down by, I think, like 4 or 5. And then that was one of the best matches I've ever wrestled, that third period, because I was just like blank. I was like, oh my gosh, like it's either I'm gonna shut down and lose this match, or I'm just gonna flow and do what I do. And I kind of learned a lot from that match in the sense of, hey, like I don't have to be thinking 24/7. I think that's been one of my issues is I kind of like overanalyze matches. Like in the match, I'm like, oh, I gotta do this, then this, then this, instead of just flowing and feeling. And that's what I did that third period where I was able to go get a couple of takedowns, cut them, take them down, and just kind of do what I do best and flow.
I like it. And so now you're in the room. You were mentioned before we got started here that you were, training with Will Lewan just the other day. So, what are some of the things that you've learned just being in the training atmosphere with him versus the actual competitive atmosphere?
Yeah, I would say the positivity in that room is insane. Like, it is awesome. You can have the hardest practice ever. And normally there'll always be one kid in some programs who is just like, oh, that sucks. I hate this, blah, 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 kind of like that. There is zero of that at U of M. It is just like, man, we had a great day today. Like, we're getting better. Good job. Like, do you want to do this extra finisher with me after practice? Like, it is insane in that sense. And I felt like coming in there, for example, I used to like and take Saturdays, Sundays off during the summer. And I quickly found out that pretty much everybody at U of M is doing something Saturday, Sunday. Even our days off on Wednesday, it's not supposed to be a full recovery day. It's supposed to be like, maybe go for a run, maybe do something small, get your body like active to recover. So I've learned a lot in that aspect. And a lot of what I used to think was overkill and like nobody does this just turns out to be kind of the normal at U of M. And I've adapted. And I like to say I'm in better shape right now than what I was at the NCAA tournament, which is insane.
Nice. No, absolutely. So one of the things I wanted to talk about with you too, and this just popped into my head a second ago. I remember watching, and you had a really close match with the eventual national champ Levi Haynes, right? So it's got to be disappointing leaving that. It was super close. I don't remember if it was some questionable calls or what happened in the match, but I do remember it was darn close to you getting that win, even in a loss, right? Which I'm sure was disappointing. What did you kind of feel in that moment wrestling that match, with a guy who was at that level?
Yeah. So first of the match, we went into overtime. I got the first takedown, and then I was up 4-3, I think in the third or something like that. He took me down off my shot. I thought I was going to ice it. So I had a sweep single, went to uppercut, trip, couldn't finish. He scrambled out, took me down, going to overtime. Right out, he got hit for locking hands, and then they pulled that call back. Then we went a couple more rounds in overtime, and then he ends up reversing me with 2 seconds left to win. But I remember wrestling that match, and he hits a high crotch, just like kind of like pinnacle shot. I ended up taking him down, and I was like, oh, like first thing that went to my mind was like, oh, he's not that good. Like he's not God,
Mm-hmm.
And I truly thought I was going to win that match. I still kind of think I do. I still think there's some calls that I should have got, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. I can get him this year. But I think that really just showed how close I am, because I think on paper it's kind of like I'm good, and then I die out Big Tens, NCAAs. That's kind of what I'm known for, honestly. And that was one of the matches where it's like, dude, if he could, peak at the right time, if I could peak at the right time, there's no reason why I shouldn't be at minimum an NCAA All-American. So I learned a lot about myself and my skills that match, in the sense of just, dude, I'm here. Like can easily compete with these guys.
So the next thing I have written down here, right, is some of your goals for next season. I mean, you just talked about being an All-American and kind of getting over that hump, so to speak, of kind of where it seems like maybe you feel or other people feel that you're at. What are some of the things that you've changed? I know you referenced, adjustments on off days and, doing things on the weekend, but outside of that, whether it's mentally, physically, what have you, where are some of the biggest leaps that you feel like you've made since making this change?
Mentally, for sure. I think that's been a big part of my career, was I never like truly believed I was like in there with those many guys. And I really think a lot of that goes back to kind of like what I said earlier, negativity, and a lot of just stuff like, for example, like, oh, today's like just people around, like the people I was around would be like, oh, it's going to be a tough practice. This is going to be a tough match, like this, that. And it's kind of like, it weighs on you after so much time. And even if it's a joke, it definitely, you start to believe it at some point. And I think I like to tell people, when I was in my senior year in high school, which was like, I was really good, I believed I was like the man. I would watch college wrestling and I'd be like, dude, I'd smoke these guys. And then I definitely lost that aspect of me these past couple of years. And then since I've been at U of M, I have found the urge to compete a lot more. And I have like truly believe like this is the best version of me by far. And I could beat like a lot of good guys. And I think a lot of that's coming from like the partners I'm wrestling with, the positivity. I mean, I'm practiced with Alex Derringer a couple days a week. I got Will Lewan, Mitch Feinsilver, Alec Pantaleo, and Bo Mantanona kind of as my main group of guys, which is insane to say. So just training with them, the positivity from them, and doing those extra workouts just ultimately is building my confidence up. And I really think this can be like a huge year for me.
What about handball? You get a lot of confidence with the extra handball games?
Yeah, it took me 2 months to get my first score. Got it. I don't think I've scored since then, but I'm more of a defensive player. But yeah, I love handball. It's actually so fun. And one thing that really stuck to me, because I don't know if you knew this, but I kind of talked about this on my YouTube video, on my YouTube channel. But my sophomore year, I went to Willie Micklis and Jo at the time, and I was like, dude, I want to quit wrestling. Like I hated wrestling, like at my sophomore year. And then now, one thing when I was at U of M, or when I first got to U of M, they said we want wrestling practice to be the best part of your day. We want you to look forward to this. That's why we have like the game and other stuff like this and positivity and all that. And because I hated wrestling at the time, I never wanted to do freestyle. Like I didn't really do freestyle ever since Fargo in high school. And now I'm like looking down the line, like maybe I'll wrestle after this senior level. Cause like I'm actually like fell back in love with the sport just from the positivity, the funness, and like having fun again with it, which is insane. Because if you would have asked me my sophomore year, like, are you going to wrestle after college or are you going to take a fifth year? I would have told you no, like no chance I'm taking a fifth year. And now here I am in my like taking my fifth year, like, hey, maybe I'll wrestle after.
Yeah, that is wild to kind of see how that shifts. And, again, being in a room, I'm sure with all these guys that have these same, international goals too, I'm sure has some level of influence on that.
100%. I mean, when you're training with guys, and I like to think of it like this, like when you're training with guys who are trying to win Olympic and world, championships, they're trying to win gold here. You're doing the same stuff they're doing. All American isn't even a thought at that point. That's kind of like the fallback, dang it, whatever. And I feel like I back in the day would just train me and Caleb, like train to be an All American, train like we got to get there. Like we put too much pressure on that. And instead of like where I am now, it's like, dude, we're training for senior level stuff. We're not really worried about that right now. And then I think it'll naturally come that way.
How many of those guys have already left for Paris?
Yeah, they leave Friday.
They leave Friday. Nice.
Yes.
I'm gonna say it's got to be close. So you talked a little bit about a YouTube channel here. I want to focus on some of your social media stuff, right? And so I again asked before we got started here, I was like, did I just miss this? Like that you've been so active on social media. So at Chase Saldate is both the handles on Instagram and Twitter. But tell me a little bit about your YouTube channel as well and kind of what you're doing with those.
Yeah, so that's super new. It's something me and my brother did. So fun fact about my brother is he kind of looks just like me, but he's like 6 foot tall, a lot more shredded, a lot bigger. But he's a football player at Notre Dame this year. He's a freshman there.
Oh,
So
nice.
he's a pretty high-end 4-star recruit. So he's there. So we kind of did like our own joint YouTube channel where we do like a lot of like day in the life. Like I did a day in the life of like U of M athlete. We do a lot of stuff like combined, which I think is really cool because we get a lot of aspects of like me watching like his film and like my thoughts from the outside because I don't know anything about football. I only watch wrestling. So we get a cool aspect of that, and then he'll react to like my stuff because he doesn't know anything about wrestling. So it's kind of cool, and you get like an aspect of like two D1 kids, completely different worlds, but it kind of shows the opposites and like how we view things differently, but at the same time, how we kind of have the same schedule and the same mindset, and how D1 has its differences in each sport, but at the root, it's kind of all the same. So that's kind of what we're focusing on is kind of just like how you have a football player, a wrestler, they're super different, but at the same time, they're very similar, their lifestyles.
And how do people find the YouTube channel?
It's just Saldate, my last name, Saldate, and then Bros, Bros.
All right, I'm gonna subscribe to that very shortly.
We got some cool stuff. I get jealous, man. We did a video of his day in life versus mine, and the food they get after practice is like more food than I eat in a day.
Yeah,
And
I don't doubt it. So talk a little bit about being a leader in this room, right? I'm sure you were a leader in the Michigan State room, and you make the transition over here. What is it like assimilating into that role, knowing you're fifth year guy, you should be coming in with some of those intangibles. So talk about what that was like.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like I think I did more leadership at Michigan State because where me and like Caleb, I bring up Caleb a lot because we were like same path. We did everything together.
Yeah.
Like we were kind of the outcasts more or less in kind of what we did. Whereas U of M, like I'm just like an average guy. And I used to think, hey, I'm the old man on the team at Michigan State because I was a senior, and such. But at U of M, I mean, Gomez is pretty old. Derringer's old. The Fine Silver brothers are old. So I'm kind of like took the step back in the sense of like, hey, like I'm new here. I just want to learn from all the older guys older than me. And, like the college guys too. I mean, we got Ragusin, even Lemley, Sergio. I think he's really like, he's young, but like mentally and wrestling wise, he's older for sure. So I'm not really like taking too big of a leadership role. I'm just more taking the backs up of like, hey, Cliff King guys, take me under your wing. I want to learn from you. And then maybe once season starts and they're kind of not in there as much, then I'll kind of bring out more leadership.
Very cool. Very cool. Um, you already talked about some of the young guys. I did want to bring up Mantanona because you referenced him earlier as a training partner of yours, and he showed some flashes for the Wolverines last year in the lineup. Talk a little bit about what you think we can expect from him this season.
No, he's really good. That kid is good. There was one day he beat me up, and there was for a while there I was like, I want to go 65. Like, and I remember I was wrestling Bo, and I was like, okay, this is a good test. Bo's beat some good guys. He's young. He's good size, and he like top bottom. He just killed me, and I was like, yeah, I'm not big enough for this weight at all yet. So I actually got like almost a reality check from Bo from like, hey man, like either if I want to go 65, I got to get stronger and bigger because I could wrestle in these positions, but the leverage and just kind of the strength that he has because he is like super tall. So in a lot of these positions where I like to wrestle, hitting a switch, rolling, scrambling, he could out wrestle me because of leverage there. I was like, okay, my weight's actually pretty low. I should probably stay at 57. But that kid is really good. And his little brother who's coming in is don't sleep on him either. He's gonna be really good.
Oh, for sure. One thing, I mean, you brought up Caleb a couple times. Caleb Fish, for those of you who don't know, also transferred out of Michigan State. He's over at Oklahoma State. He is also there with Cam Amin, who just recently left Michigan. So it's cool. Both of those guys are from Michigan, so I'm sure there was some overlap with them wrestling in high school or something like that. But nonetheless, both of those guys had some battles throughout the years too. So have you talked to Caleb a bit about what he's been like assimilating into that room and working with those guys?
Yeah, he loves it. Our one of the funny things about Caleb is Caleb just likes to play video games. Like he's kind of a nerd when it's video games, and he like texted a couple of us, and he was like, "Dude, none of the team plays video games here." That was like the biggest thing he was worried about out of everything. I was like, "What? Like, world, what?" But he loves it out there too. He's having a blast. Caleb's a workhorse. He wants to wrestle 2, 3 times a day. He wants to lift heavy every single day. That dude. That's why he's so strong. But when he went there, I mean, that program fits him perfectly. He loves it. The hardest thing would be video games for him right now, from what I've heard. Because I talk to him all the time, and it is hot, he says. And I said, yes, it's going to be like that, man. But he loves it. We both talk all the time, and like how we just can't believe the stuff that we're doing now. If we would have told our old selves, hey, you got to do this, our old selves would have been like, no, nobody does that. Now it's the bare minimum where we are. Been a big reality check for sure.
I like it. I like it. Well, the last thing I wanted to cover with you real fast is I was looking at your Instagram, and again, you're always posting some great content. You had one thing pop up recently. Was your top 5 favorite photos from your wrestling career? It looked like, right?
Yeah.
Um, the last one, or the number one, I should say, being you and Daniel Cormier sitting there. Talk a little bit about the relationship with Daniel and kind of how surreal it is to having watched him throughout his career and what you've learned from him.
Yeah, I mean, he became my high school coach my junior year, but he was my personal coach when I was in 7th grade. So I've known him forever. We had a great relationship, and we still talk all the time. I was his second state champ ever, which was huge, and I plan to be his first All American that he ever has this year. So that'll be pretty cool, and national champ. But when I was in the portal, he really reached out to me and he guided me a lot of the way. Obviously, he would have liked for me to go to Oklahoma State. That was definitely in the picture. I entered the portal, do not contact, because I kind of figured out either like to go to U of M or Okie State. And, he once again like put away his personal like side, like when I was getting recruited in high school. He wanted to go to Oklahoma State, but he said it's up to you. He didn't force it on me, which I think was huge and awesome. And he kind of did the same thing now. And he helped me really guide myself to that decision. And to this day, he still reaches out to me all the time, calls and just messes around with me. He's like a kid, DC. He's like a kid, which is cool though. Like our personalities match really well because of it. I was down in California a month ago, and we went golfing, hung out and stuff. So I like that, the sense of, even though I'm like older and he has all these new guys, Dan Zepeda, the Cortez brothers, I mean, that are really good. Yeah, Gilroy, like he doesn't really forget about the guys that were there. Like he still reaches out to us all the time. If we come in, he'd tell like Zepeda, like, oh yeah, the real champ is here. Like this is the guy, and like stuff like that. So I enjoy it. It's awesome. He's a great dude.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, we're really excited to see you wrestle in the Maize and Blue this year. and certainly good luck on the rest of your season.
Yeah, I got one thing too.
Yeah, that's it.
I'll be wrestling next week. So yeah, Mexico national qualifier, which is so crazy. It's freestyle. I used to hate freestyle, never wanted to do it. And then after being in the room with these guys, I mean, like I said earlier, my competitive nature's up. I want to go compete.
Yeah.
I want to get some matches in. I want to see where I'm at, this new version of me, like a sneak peek of kind of what's been happening. So I think it's next Friday, Saturday, Mexico City. I'm gonna be wrestling out there. I got get my dual citizenship. So like I said, may wrestle senior level, and if I do, it'll be down for Mexico.
I love it, man. That's awesome. So obviously your top game is unreal in folk style. Is it safe to assume you've got a pretty nasty top game in freestyle as well, or kind of what's your strategy?
Well, I've only been training it for a couple months now, but it is definitely still like I arm bar. Like I
Yeah.
find a way to get to my arm bar, and then I turn from there to like a trap arm gut and stuff. And it is so crazy because in folk style, most confident on top. And so far, freestyle, if I take you down, I feel super confident I could tech somebody there. So I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Awesome, man. We'll be looking forward to watching that and really appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hold on a second.